Religious belief is often viewed as a cornerstone of morality, but is it really? It's believed to instill moral values, but does it? And what sort of moral values does it instill? Religious texts like the Bible, they outline specific moral codes that lead people to assume that religious belief makes you a better, more compassionate person. You can colour me sceptical on that because of the sort of moral values that are raised in the Bible. For example, it condones slavery, it condones sexism, misogyny, and homophobia. None of those are, in my opinion, moral. Every one of them is immoral or, at best, amoral. Morality derived from a book like the Bible isn't a true moral system. It's a divine command, which basically is, do as I say. That doesn't make something moral. What sort of things does religious belief do? Richard Dawkins, he says that it hinders progress by promoting superstition and nonsense. And my view about the effect of religion and progress and stuff like that is that the ancients who wrote the books that are in the Bible, they didn't have access to the vast amount of scientific information that's available to us today that shows that the story of Adam and Eve did not and could not happen, that Noah's Ark story did not and could not happen. It shows all sorts of other things there about the resurrection, that, it does not happen. Why it can't happen, it talks about all sorts of scientific claims that Christians make that are demonstrably untrue by modern science. Now, the ancients who wrote those books, they didn't have access to that. A person living in the 21st century has got access to all that information on their cell phone. So the way I see it, a person who lived 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, who thought that a god puffed everything into existence just by speaking a few words, and that he created a man by making a clay figure, then breathing life into it, made a woman by taking a rib from that man that he just created. They didn't have access to the information that we've got today. So to me, their ignorance is understandable, and it's forgivable because it is understandable because of their lack of access to that knowledge. People in the 21st century don't have that excuse. People in the 21st century, as I said, can pick up their cell phone, look up articles, scientific papers on genetics, on meteorology, for the Noah's Ark story, why that's not true. Look up the things, things about consciousness, the source of consciousness, and that tells them what scientists have learned. The ignorance of people today who think that the Bible, written 2,000 odd years ago, is accurate, scientifically accurate, historically accurate, that ignorance to me is willful. Willful ignorance to me is unforgivable. The Bible promotes hateful and outdated beliefs. A good example of that is that homosexuality is evil, that homosexuals deserve to be put to death. There are people in the 21st century who believe that homosexuals are perverts, that they don't deserve to live, that they should be executed for their crime. They've got no control over their sexuality. When I've heard people say that to me about, somebody, about gays being perverted and things like that, I've often asked them, when did they choose their sexuality? Did they experiment with gay sex first and then come to the conclusion, no, that's not for me? Or were they born heterosexual? And the answer, of course, is that they were born heterosexual, just in the same way that gays, lesbians, they're born gay or lesbian. It's not something that they choose. You can no longer choose. You're no more able to choose your sexuality than you are to choose the colour of your eyes or the colour of your skin. And religious belief promotes hateful beliefs about that sort of thing. It leads to discrimination against other people based on their religious belief, their sexuality, which I've just mentioned. The number of times that you hear Christians denigrating somebody because they're Hindu, who also happen to be brown-skinned, which the Bible promotes racism as well. That discrimination, just because somebody believes something different, they discriminate against them. And I imagine that Hindus would discriminate against Muslims, and Muslims discriminate against, well, we know their views on Jews. It's a thing that's in the Bible, and it comes from the Bible, and it's immoral. History also shows that religious belief leads to violence. The entire history of humanity for the past 2,000 odd years has been driven by religious wars, constant religious wars, where people were killed just because they didn't believe that version of Christianity, or they didn't believe Christianity at all, or Islam, or Hinduism. They were all basically spread by the sword, not by the power of the word. People aren't persuaded to join a religion because it's demonstrated to be true. They're persuaded to become a Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, whatever it happens to be, because they were born in a country where the majority of people are Christians, Hindus, Muslims, etc. And if you were to take a baby born to a Christian family today, a newborn baby, and drop that with a Muslim family or a Hindu family, they would grow up to be a Muslim or a Hindu, because that is the culture that they grow up in. It promotes a mentality that leads to conflict and division, which I've just spoken about. There's a guy called Steven Weinberg. He said that good men will do good deeds and that evil men will do evil deeds. But to get a good person to do an evil deed, that takes religion. And I don't think he's wrong. Now, faith, I agree, it inspires people to do good deeds. People of faith are the ones that founded the first universities, the first charities, the first hospitals. There's no doubt about that. But why did they do it? One reason, fear of divine punishment. If I don't do what God says, I'm going to spend eternity getting tortured. And if I do what he says, I'm going to go to heaven, and I'm going to be eternally happy. The thing about eternal happiness in heaven is another one that gets me, because how can you know happiness if you don't know sadness? Different question. It's something as well that the thought of me spending eternity in heaven where nothing ever changes, I found that repugnant. Now, compare that to secular people. Why do they do good deeds? They do them because they are the right thing to do. If somebody is hungry, the right thing to do is to feed them. If somebody is sick, the right thing to do is to get them the medical treatment that they need. Not because they're going to get tortured, not because they're going to get a reward. Well, there is a reward. The reward is that you feel good because you've done something good for somebody else. So that raises the question, what is secular morality based on? It's based on reason, empathy, and justice. The well-being of another person. The well-being of me, of the society that I live in. If somebody was to come and chop my head off, that's not good for my well-being. All right? So I don't go around chopping other people's head off. If I do that sort of thing, it is detrimental to society. So well-being as a basis for morality helps me. It helps everybody. It helps the society that we live in, because we've now got a society that is empathetic, that is moral, that is doing the right thing for the right reason. It's doing the thing because it helps people, it helps other people, it improves their well-being, and it leads to a healthier, more structured society. Now, if you look at societies that are like Iran, for example, a fundamentalist Islamic society with a theocratic government, and you look at things like the crime rates, or look at the United States with its crime rates, and it's a very religious country. Their sky rates, their societal health is atrocious. 27th or something like that in education. Their health, people go bankrupt. It's the only country on the planet where people go bankrupt because they can't pay a medical bill. The other things that all stem from that religious belief. You then look at a country like Iceland, which is very, very, very atheistic. and they have got far better educational outcomes, health outcomes, social security services, and things like that than the deeply religious countries like the United States or Iran do. Another thing that I mentioned, education. Another thing with that, the United States is currently used to be number one in the world for education, of educational achievements. Currently, it's around about number 27 or 28, somewhere around there. Of you go from top to bottom, they're around about 28, 29. Even Turkey is doing better than them. So the relationship between religion and morality is very complex, and much more so than we assume. Now, while it can inspire moral behaviour, it's not the only factor that determines our moral character. Being a better person can manifest itself in many, many, many forms, but it's up to the individual to decide what it means to them.
If you like what I have to say, please hit like, subscribe and ring that notification bell. Comments, positive and negative, are welcome. Add them below and I'll do my best to respond. Thank you.